And I remember seeing that video and I was horrified. And I thought, why are you talking in that way? Why are you saying this? That's not okay. It's not appropriate. And Josh was just looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's just what you do. And I said, yeah, but people think bad of you and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I think when you're brought up and everybody who loves you is going, you are just beautiful, Josh. A beautiful soul that happened to have quite a beautiful outer shell. But even if he didn't have the outer shell, I would have hoped that he felt inner beauty. And so he'd tell everyone, you know, you'd be like, you look lovely. I know.
People, you're now watching the Daily Devotion podcast, the space where we're connected and engaged with creatives from various industries to share insights on their journey thus far. So yeah, at that time, Socks was like West Mids. He was doing bits. Where did that even come from? Like, why did he think that he could just send? Obviously, it's part of the culture to send and clash and stuff, but
I think Josh didn't like the fact that Socks was the name because Josh wanted to be the name.
Yeah.
And I don't think Josh appreciated that somebody had a bigger name than him, so he just needed to go in for the biggest, and that's the way Joshua was. He was not somebody to hold back from an opinion. His album was called Too Real. He was too real. There was no filter with Josh. So if Josh saw somebody that he thought, yeah, you're good, but in Joshua's head, Josh was better, then it's like, nah, I just need to send for him, because then when he's out the way, then I can just take over. I'll just take him out of the scene and then I'll just carry on.
Step into place.
And I remember seeing that video and I was horrified. And I thought, why are you talking in that way? Why are you saying this? That's not okay. It's not appropriate. And Josh was just looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's just what you do. And I said, yeah, but people think bad of you and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually, as time went by, I kind of understood it more, that sends are like, you know, not always genuine, not always real. Then I started meeting a lot of the people that he was working with and I thought they're nice people. Okay, this isn't the horror that I'm thinking. It's not some horrible scene. Because, you know, media again, the grime scene. But yeah, grime artists are human beings that are doing a type of music. So yeah, so when he did that, I was just like, oh my God. And then you started to see the response to that. And then he just carried on and it built and built and built and built. And then certain things were just slotting into place. So who's the boss?
Yeah,
you know,
JDZ, P110.
All of it. And the thing with who's the boss, the thing that was so reassuring about that was the fact that he lost. He lost that clash. He had gone in unprepared because it was his first clash. He didn't really know. And he was there while the other young man was doing his bit. Josh was actually writing bars to keep up with him. And that was his brain, the way his brain was wired. And that brought a lot of attention, you know. So even though he lost, he managed to handle himself quite well rather than blowing up, which was very much what he'd always done. He started to learn with the support of the people around him that isn't actually the way that you behave, Josh. And there was a lot of his friends behind the scenes who were very calming, positive, influential, supporters of him. They didn't necessarily approve of his outbursts, but they were helping him to kind of overcome all of that. And I remember thinking, right, and then obviously SBTV.
The rest in peace, Jamal.
I was just about to say that.
That I was watching the podcast the other day. I think it was like the Hate Pod. They were saying when Jamal Edwards came to do a video with you, you were certified, like fledged in this scene, and
the thing I'll say, you know, I didn't know Jamal well, but I knew what kind of person he was, and when everybody talks so highly about him, that's because that's the person he was. And he stayed in contact with me after I lost Josh, and he was just a very, very wonderful young man, you know, and definitely R.I.P, and to his mum as well, you know. I think about her all the time. Yeah, but he was just a genuine guy, and I think he just found Josh hysterical, because I remember we were in Ibiza. So you look at SBT and you think, oh my God, Depzman in Ibiza. And again, behind that video, Josh was in Ibiza, but Josh was with me on holiday in an all-inclusive with our little all-inclusive
Chilling
wristbands. And he was there in the pool, you know, playing ball. And then all of a sudden he's like, Mum, Mum, Mum. I'm like, and you know, whenever Josh said Mum like that was, I want something. And I'd be like, what, my love? Bearing in mind how old he wasn't that old. And he went, I need some money. And you're thinking, oh, here we go, what for now? Fishing rod, something that flashes, drink. Nah, I need €150. I'm like, for what? I'm going to film a video with this guy called Jamal. What guy? You know, I've got to get to this hotel, I've got to get a taxi at €75. And I don't know why, but every single thing Joshua wanted to do, Joshua had to do. And I'm so glad. But as a parent, if a child says, I need €150, it's normal to say, well, you're not having €150, you can't just have what you want. But I always had this feeling in my heart that Joshua had to do whatever Joshua needed to do, because one day his time is going to run out. And I always had that feeling that he had to do what he had to do then, at that moment, and way before he should have been able to do any of it. And off he went. And then I think it was the following Sunday or the Sunday after, Depzman, SBTV. And I was like, click. And I was like that, no way.
Numbers started climbing. Rapid.
And he was just like, blah, 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 you know, Pringle lid and all this kind of shenanigans. And I was just like, oh, that's all right.
How did he... How did you know... How was you able to manage his excitement, even though you say he's always been quite excitable, but in this new sense where it's so positive and everybody's saying, oh, you know, he's sick, he's doing Who's the Boss, he's got Jamal Edwards, he's doing, like, to see him almost exalted for like how good he was, it must have been constant.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
And it wasn't at that point yet, because a lot of things behind the scenes were still very unstable. So his emotion took over in a lot of cases. There was never that balance and calmness that he had now achieved and broken through and become. And that was it. Where are we going with this? It was very much a battle behind the scenes, you know, the music industry, you know, not booking him, not helping him, not supporting him, but then other people did, other people loved it, other people are, but, you know, Birmingham artist, there was still very much London, Birmingham, So there was a lot of challenges behind the scenes, and that's very much normal. But he was very young, and, you know, it was still a case of managing his behaviour, managing his pain, managing Josh. So the Depzman element was never a priority. It was never stable. It was never something that, well, this is it now. It was very much still a work in progress. And I think he only achieved that stability, that calmness, that peace in his heart probably about 4 months before he got killed. So we only had a very short period of time when it's like, right,
everything started to kind
now
of
let's become who you should become. We've been through this, we've established this, we've sorted this, we've calmed this. Now, Josh, now you can be Depzman.
It's crazy though, because I feel like the rise to fame is a thing that a lot of people want. A lot of what we want as MCs, you know, up north, trying to blow and stuff, and we don't ever realise how much pressure it is, how much pitfalls there are where he's saying he's not getting booked, and then, but his brethren is still going to support him, and then he's trying to work out, well, if I'm this good, how comes this show doesn't want me? But then he's done SBTV, and it's so conflicting.
Yeah,
all the time. At such a young age.
Such a young age. So
that's the thing. He was young.
At no point did me and him ever talk about him being Depzman. At no point did we talk about Lord of the Mics. At no point did we talk about anything. It was like, are you okay, Josh? Are you all right? Where are you going? Who are you going with? Where he was going, what he was doing wasn't really relevant. It was just normal. Mum, son, who are you with? Where are you going? What do you need? I need to know where you are, so whatever happens, whatever situation, I can get you back and I can get you home safe. that's what it was. And then I'd see, and then that's when, in fact, there was a memory on my Facebook last week where 9 years ago, he'd actually phone me up and go, Mom, stop retweeting everything on my Twitter. All my friends will think, why is this old woman all over my Twitter? So that's when I first had Twitter, and I was just following him and watching everything he was doing, because if I went, well, who are you with and what are you? You know, he was still a child, so I couldn't just say, yeah, you go to Peterborough, you go here, and off you go, without being, well, that's okay, you're doing it, but I need to know where you're going, and I need to know who you're with and what's happening and when are you going to be home. So it was just trying to allow him to fly, but not fully. And then I remember one time he came and he was like, Mom, I need some money. You're like, what for now, love? And he goes, I probably need about £1,000 though. And I'm like, yeah. And it wasn't no, it was like, yeah, £1,000. What for, my love? Oh, I'm performing with Skepta. And I was like, yeah, in Magaluf.
BBK.
And I was like, when are you going, my darling? Tomorrow. With? Oh, JK's going. So I thought, right, JK looks after him, right, that's good. And you're flying from where? And that was it. The money went to his account, and that was
gone.
And he performed with people that he'd always looked up to and were inspired by. And so, as somebody that young, should I have let him go? As a mum, absolutely not. Am I glad I let him go? Absolutely.
I'm sure he spoke that into existence, that collab, because he was...
You look at Joshua's life and his journey as Depzman. The way the stars aligned for him.
Mad. And
for him to be who he became was the blessing that he needed to feel before he left. You know. And yeah, it's really strange. I can't explain that, but he needed to be, you know, he never got musically where he could have been, where he could have achieved that, you know, and I've never think that was taken from him. He had to achieve happiness and peace. You know, what would have been as Depzman, he probably would have been one of the biggest artists to be in this country. And
I was just about to ask that as well.
You know, so I think for Josh, you know, it was only a few months before he died that we were then talking about, right, second album, UK tour,
mobiles, Brits, everything,
and you know
over.
that it would have come.
I can see that still. I can see it, because it's one of those things where I was like growing up in Grime. We had our, you know, your Kanos, you had your, you know, Skeptas, you had your London MCs. It was always predominantly London, East Midlands. You had your like Deadlies and your like Invasions.
Yeah. And if you look at those names that you've just said,
yeah, where are they?
No, not even that, because those are people that will still be those people in 5 years, 2 years, 10 years. Just because when people say, Grime's dead, Grime never died. It's just that other people thought something else was more fashionable at the time. Yeah. And these are artists, every single person you named will always be the same Grime MC, whether they're in fashion or not fashion. Joshua didn't want to be the next anybody. Joshua wanted to be himself. Skepta is himself. Deadly is himself. Kano is himself. If we're creating clones, they're just going to drop off. And Joshua was Depzman. And people wanted to be Depzman.
You respect,
Skepta doesn't want to be anyone except for Skepta. Kano is Kano. JME is JME. Gets. Let's start having a look at who's who. Gets.
Yeah.
You know, other artists. Gets is amazing.
God.
You know, and you've got other Kdot. R.I.P. Beautiful,
Kdot.
Amazing artist. Was Kdot like anyone else? Kdot was Kdot. If you are who you truly believe you are and you stick to your truth, you will always be that person, and you will always be relevant in your world. Grime won't be dead. Other people's opinions might be dead, but you're not, and that's the difference. If you are who you know you are, you'll never be, you know, you'll always be successful. And Josh was always going to be Depzman, and that wouldn't have changed. He always would have been who he was.
He had energy though, man. Like, he was just
energy.
Like, yeah, it was tough. He actually had bars though, like bars. Obviously, Clash Kdot from Chef we spoke off camera about how joke that clash was. He had bars and he held it up, because then he would have been, say, they'd been maybe 2-3 years younger.
I think he was more than that. I think
More
he
than
was
that.
actually 8 years younger than Kdot.
Like his
Around that kind of difference. There was quite a few,
it
or
was
6 or 7 or something like that.
yeah.
I'm not 100, but it was definitely more than...
Couple of years.
Definitely more, but
then,
but he...
held it up, man. Held his corner.
He did, and he had that talent and that ability, and, you know, it was... He needed to believe in himself before anything else, because, you know, you look at the criticism, you know, 1 minute people will be your fans, then they won't, then you're crap, then you're not. He just knew that he was good at what he did, and that was it, really. And I think once he had that confidence, it didn't matter. There was no sense of... And again, I keep talking about his ADHD, but if you have to look at it, you know, you don't have a fear factor. You don't look and think, oh, I'm not going to clash this established artist that is a big artist who's well known and very, very, very good and talented. He'll just be like,
I'm going to do it.
Well, you're a good artist. Let's see if we can take you down. And it's just
I'll take your place and step in and then...
Yeah, which,
go
you know,
from
but
there.
Kdot's Kdot and Depzman's Depzman and so on. And these are the artists that in 3 years, 5 years, when everyone's like, Grime, you know, forget this, Grime is the thing now. You know, you're starting to see it brewing up again, the clashes, the old school
100%.
clashes, and you're watching them, you're thinking, yeah, the energy, Birmingham, London, and more on the same stage, selectively who's on that stage, but that's probably another thing. And then all of a sudden you think, yeah, because Grime never died, it's just music becomes fashionable and fashion changes. So, yeah, Joshua just wanted to be Depzman.
And even like the messages within his music, I feel, you know, art is this thing that enables us to communicate with the world. And obviously him being an artist, he articulated his messages very, very, very well. And he had a massive following because of that. It's not just because he was, you know, he had the energy, he was repping West Midlands. He had a lot of context to his music.
Yeah, and that was a process, you know, to be that young and be able to articulate pain. I think was a unique ability and talent, but we had to face that pain, and I'm a firm believer of that. The pain was there, and the pain, what do you do with that pain? Does it destroy you? Does it enable you? Does it push you forward? It's very, very difficult, you know, and again, everything aligns, and he was able to process different things and speak about them from his heart with truth, and that came through his lyrics, that came through the screen, and that impacted a lot of people and inspired a lot of people. And he's basically saying, you know, I live in pain, I've lived in pain, and I'm loving life. So it's like, oh, how'd you do that then? You just have, what else can you do, really? You know, but, you know, he, like I said, he was fortunate. You know, he was fortunate that he had that bit behind the scenes support. Without it,
who enabled him to have... Even just, I'm thinking, I'm sat here thinking, wait a minute, so, boom. Mom, you got a bags, please, because I need to run over here and I'm flying tomorrow. I know what my mum would say.
But the thing is, though, and I think...
It's just that support mechanism was always there.
Yeah, and it's not...
Brilliant.
It is... He was very lucky. But the thing is, though, that it's not necessarily a brilliant thing from me. My outlook on life wasn't particularly normal because the trauma, the absolute sheer I was desperate that he didn't feel pain, desperate he didn't feel rejection, and I still to this day don't know why. And I've said it previously, I always had this underlying feeling that I wasn't going to have him forever. So everything was so at such a fast pace. Everything was not normal. I remember when he was 13, taking him to London to see a show and getting a stretch limo. He had a bottle of champagne. I had a bottle of champagne. I look back now and I think...
Living the high life,
13,
chauffeur.
you know, one of the first people to have Ciroc. You couldn't buy it from a shop. You couldn't go to the local shop. Selfridges.
Do you know what?
£50 for the smallest bottle. He's like, Mom, can you, for my birthday, I think he was 13 or 14, can you get me this drink from Selfridges? Of course, my darling. Send me like an idiot. Straight to, excuse me, I need to get this drink. She said it here, yeah. Oh, how much is it? And it's £50. I'm like, £50? I said, what is it? They went, vodka. And I'm thinking, but there was nothing going, oh, that's not right. I just thought, he has to have it.
Yeah.
Which people say, oh, so he's spoiled. Yeah, he was, and that's me. My life, my choice, my child, what?
Yeah.
You know, I can do what I like with him because he's mine. Were you involved in his life? No. Does your opinion matter? No. Thank you very much. And so I did whatever I wanted to do with him. And there we go. And he loved it, but he absolutely just took liberties all the time. I remember there was snow on the ground in March. The sun came out. Mom, can I have some money? Of course you can, my darling. How much? Oh, just 100. I'm like, for what? My friends are going to come around, we're having music and party in the garden. And, we just like, but...
It's snowing outside.
But no, we loved it. And there's a photograph and it's got the bottles and the Hennessy and that and the music. And you just look back now and you think, I'm glad I gave him that £100. Because if I didn't, would he have had that moment? So...
And there are moments that are shared with his peers at the time.
Yeah, they just loved him.
They loved it. They
loved it. They thought it was the best thing ever. He was great. Just nuts. But they loved that energy. They loved that. And all his friends said there was just nobody like him. And there wasn't anyone like him. He was just... If he was in a meeting with people from the music industry and he didn't like them, he wouldn't go, I'm just going to keep quiet, get this, do this, take it for what it is. He'd be sitting there in the interview and be like, you're a dickhead. and his friends were like, ha, ha,
I'm not lose the label.
You can't say that. He'd be like, yeah, but... And he was always like that from a little boy. He never thought, I can't say this. It'd go, dunk. So very difficult as his mum, but as his friends, absolutely hysterical.
And I'm guessing that comes from an honest place. It's not even like a place where he's trying to be... At times it might have been a bit slick, but it seems like he was just very honest, just straight up.
Very honest. And again, that was very much what he was like from a little boy. He would just say it, his truth, and if it offended, it offended. If it didn't, if it didn't. If people laughed, they laughed, and if they got mad with him, they got mad with him. But he was just Josh. And it was a case of, this is who you are, I need you to love who you are, regardless of what other people say. And he did. He loved who he was eventually. It was a long process, but he would stand there confidently going, I'm gorgeous. Everyone loves me. The girls love me. My mates think I'm hysterical. I'm the best MC. Look at me. And everyone was like, you are. And it just
exudes that air of confidence, and it's genuine. It's not an egotistical. It's just, he just believes in himself.
But he really, terribly, people used to think he was arrogant, and he was. He was arrogant but that's what he truly believed. And I think when you're brought up and everybody who loves you is going, you are just beautiful, Josh. A beautiful soul that happened to have quite a beautiful outer shell. But even if he didn't have the outer shell, I would have hoped that he felt inner beauty. And so he'd tell everyone, you'd be like, you look lovely. I know. And yet you'd be like, yeah, but don't necessarily need to say, like, I know. But you're like, yeah, but obviously. But he did mean it, which some people say, oh, he thinks he's this, he thinks he's that. He thinks he's... Yeah, he did. And again, what?
I love how a lot of his come up in his ascension, or just his personality, was documented massively. We don't really document enough. We always hear his Snapchat, whatever, Instagram, but I'm talking proper sacred moments. All his music, all his clashes, all the times with the boys in Ibiza, in the airport, with yourself. It's just, it's so lovely to see that he was enjoying his life and wanted to share that. Definitely.
Yeah. I think he appreciated what he had. I think and I think you see, the messages he uploaded about me, his family, he started to really see what people had actually done behind the scenes to enable him, and to get to that place of appreciation at such a young age. People do get to that place, but usually it takes a number of years in your 20s, maturity. But he hit that point very, very early. Again, everything was early with Josh, and he was just grateful for, for everything that had been done for him. And I think he had this strong belief that he was going to repay that through, you know, through everything he was achieving was going to, you know, and he didn't have to. And I think it's very quite iconic, you know, the first thing and last thing he ever purchased was the watch for me. He got his money and the first thing he did was go and spend it on me. And the first thing I said was, no, you don't have to, because I didn't want him to spend his money on me. I wanted to spend his money on him. And he was just like, no, Mum, this is for you. And, you know, I've never worn it. I've never taken it out of the box since and put it on because... And you could see how much he appreciated the love and the patience and the determination for him. You know, so by the time it dawned on him about everything, you know, he wanted to kind of give that back, you know, and he did. And then that was the day he died.
It's crazy because you speak about giving back. That's the person that he wanted to be, who he was, always had been. He just kind of managed to cultivate it more, be able to express that more. The night of his murder, he was giving back more. He was at a show in memory of another young person who probably passed away a year ago.
That's right.
And he was performing there that night, showing his love, doing his thing. If you don't mind,
you can ask me anything.
Take us back through that night of September 21st.
Yeah, so it was the 20th. So very happy day, really happy day. He'd got his iTunes money. He was just living his life all over social media, showing everybody, look what I've got, you know, etc., etc. And then, you know, then he went to an event and a minor disagreement became the end of his life. And, you know, that small argument, he was stabbed once and it was an absolute desperate fight to live. You know, you're very welcome to ask me anything around that if you want me to talk about anything in more detail. I'm happy to share everything. Yeah, a single stab wound and he passed away 5:58 a.m. on the 21st of September.